Well, I don't know how to pronounce this, but they've asked, how would you go about incorporating this sky into a Bryce scene? So this is a resource, a stock image that's available at DeviantArt, and here's one of my scenes, and what I plan to do is fit that into the sky over the HDRI backdrop image there. So to achieve that effect, what I did was I downloaded the image and I've got it ready and waiting to pick up somewhere where I know where I saved it, and I'm going to click on this little fella here, a 2D picture object, and then click on an empty square. Be careful at this point not to click outside that area, otherwise this window will vanish behind the other window and then you can't do anything. So just go Alt Tab until you can bring it back. Navigate to where the image you want to bring in is, open it and check. And at this point it's somewhere in the scene here at the world origin, so I'm going to enlarge that and then move it into my view so it's more or less behind my terrain just here. So you can see that now it's in the sky, but I need to orientate it. Now, to make life easier for myself, I'm going to use the tracking option in the attributes box for it. So attributes, linking, track object name, perspective camera, and select -Z, and that will turn it round so it's facing the camera and it's not left, right, reversed. At the moment it's not really bright enough. Now in my sky and fog I've made sure I've got 100% output in the global ambient colour, and if I modify the material on this, what I'm going to do, it's already got a blob in ambient but it's got no output, so I'm going to give it 100 output on ambient and just get rid of the diffuse output for now. Check out of that, have a look how it looks in the scene. Good. I'm going to enlarge it now so I can reposition it by dragging it, and I can see how far it sort of went down to the horizon. So I'm going to have to enlarge it quite a bit, and the issue is when you've got water that you might have a reflection that shows you around the edge, which means that the sky you're trying to match it up to could do with being a pretty good match. But what this orientation option means, it'll always be as square onto the camera as it can possibly be. You've got the option of sliding it up and down to position it in the sky where you want it, but I'm going to aim for it to land on the horizon there and open it out, which shows why to achieve this sort of thing you need quite a large image to get the right sort of effect. Okay, so we're getting close now. It just needs some adjustment to the lighting, so I'm just enlarging it so that the mountains are covering up the edges here where I haven't got an image and it's more or less filling my sky. I'm going to modify this a little bit, so at the moment is looking a bit low in contrast, and I've got some additional lighting being provided from image based lighting. I'm going to reduce that a little bit, so rendering scene here, image based lighting, I'll take that down to 75, so it reduces the light a bit, and the sky is obviously being lit from a sun on the other horizon, so I'll move the sun around and change its colour to be more in keeping with what I've got in my scene, and maybe increase the intensity of it a little, particularly since I took the HDRI lighting down a bit, and lower it towards the horizon so we're getting shadows. So this is just matching the light that you've got in the scene to the sky that you've got as best you can. Check out of that. Now to increase the contrast of this image, because it's looking a bit dull, bear in mind the haze is overlaying it. Well, we can move the haze down with this control, left click and drag that down, and that'll remove a bit of the haze height from it. I still want the haze to help blend the mountains in there, and I might change the colour to match the sky if it looks like it's out of sync. It doesn't look too bad in this case, so what I'm going to do is modify the material on the 2D plane, and I'm going to go into the texture source editor here, copy the image and paste it in so it becomes its own alpha channel. So where it's brightest it'll be giving high alpha output. Then if I put a blob in diffusion, that alpha channel will drive the diffusion and it'll pick up the other lights in the scene, and then it will light it up. Something else I can do to improve matters is get rid of cast shadows, receive shadows and self shadows. I don't need it on blend transparency, it can be normal, and make sure there's no other blobs in transparent or anything like that. So this means that it's a static image and it's not casting any shadows on the ground from my other light sources. So if I check out of there, that should have brightened it up a bit. And now, since my focus is going to be mostly sky, I'm going to tilt my camera back, and that'll just show a bit more of this sky off. And I just not to be aware now that there's a bit of an edge showing there, so I'll just enlarge this slightly and move it into a more central position. And I think at that point I'm more or less done. So I've got my sky in this scene. I could post work it to make it look a bit brighter, but I've managed to integrate it fairly well. There's just a bit of a question mark over the colour of the light from the HDRI image, whether it's appropriate. So if I wanted to match this sort of minty green as a final refinement, I could reduce my image-based lighting still further, and that sunlight, it's not looking too bad from that position actually. I might increase the intensity of the colour of it a bit, maybe just make it a bit more dramatic to match this orangey colour here. And I could introduce some sky dome light, which is a non-shadow casting type of light, just a direct light straight down that will light the snow up a bit and help it match in a bit with the colour of the sky, which was the aim there. So you can see now, I'd say that's more or less done, so I'll just let it finally render. But even at an image size like this, you can see the limitations of using an image for the sky. It has to be very high resolution before you can do this, and this is only a small portion of the sky that's been covered. If you have a narrower field of view, that might help, and matching the field of view to the image that you're using for the sky is also another thing that's quite helpful. But you can get away with quite a lot when you're rendering, and since the sky is, although it's packed with features, it's not got any regular features like buildings, things like that, that give you the clues that you would need to get an idea of what the field of view might be. So in that sense it lets you get away with quite a bit. So there you go, that's a fairly quick, easy way of inserting an image into your scene behind what you got to render there. I hope that was helpful. Cheers now.